According to the World Population Review, Stockholm is the 12th safest city in the world, only beaten by cities like Tokyo, Singapore and Copenhagen. It's a safe city overall, but there are always things to watch out for. This is a list of scams to avoid when you're visiting Stockholm. When arriving in Stockholm, either at the airport or at the central station, the first thing that many people do is to take a taxi to their hotel. And that's where you find your very first scam. Taxis in Sweden are regulated to some degree. All taxis must have an informational sticker on the back door showing the prices. The problem is that tourists, and most Swedes for that matter, never look at those stickers. And even if you read the sticker, it might be in a strange foreign currency, expressed in a way that doesn't really tell you all that much. As long as taxis have those stickers, they're allowed to charge just about any amount for a ride. This can be the difference between hundreds and thousands of Swedish crowns. As a rule of thumb, a taxi ride within the city should never cost more than 500 crowns or 50 euros. And a taxi from the airport to the city center should cost around 700 crowns or 70 euros. There are both cheaper and more expensive taxi companies, but if you see that the price starts to go above, say, 80 or 90 euros, then you might be getting scammed. So what can you do to protect yourself against taxi scams? First of all, try to find a reputable taxi brand. Taxi Stockholm, Taxi Kurir and Sverige Taxi are all good brands to choose from. If you pick another company, chances are it'll be fine either way. But keep an eye on the meter. If you see that the price increases way too quickly, tell the driver to stop and just get off. You still have to pay what the meter says. You can't argue that you're being ripped off, cause technically the prices are all visible. But just get out as quickly as you can and get another taxi. Or you can use public transport instead. Get a bus or a metro or a commuter train. That's always going to be cheaper. So you're ready to explore Stockholm. The first place you'll visit is probably gonna be Gamla stan, Stockholm Old Town. Stockholm was founded in the 1200s, and Old Town used to be the main city for hundreds of years. This place is amazing, and it's filled with narrow alleys and historical buildings. It's also where you find some of the most dubious stores in all of Stockholm. There are tons of souvenir shops along the main street, selling ridiculous and overpriced items. You won't find a single genuine Swedish article here, except possibly a dalahäst, a Dalecarlian horse. Those are actually proper traditional souvenirs. But in general, just avoid the souvenir shops in Old Town and in the city center. They'll just rip you off with exorbitant prices and useless junk. As you're walking through Old Town, you may suddenly see a group of people playing a fun little game of find the ball while exchanging money. I don't think I need to tell you that any game played on a street corner is a scam. These people will use sleight of hand and rip you off completely, and of course they have accomplices as well. If you see anyone win big at those types of games, they're working together with a scam artist. And if you see a group of people having a lot of fun and looking at the game, they're most likely in cahoots with the scammer as well. Never talk to those people, and never ever agree to play a game. After successfully avoiding all of these Old Town scams, you might want to grab something to eat. And that's where you'll find your next scam. Or well, not scam exactly, but the restaurants in Old Town are generally overpriced. The quality isn't always the best, and the prices are high. It's basically an area ripe with tourist traps. Then again, this is also where you find some awesome bars and restaurants, like the Viking-themed restaurant iFood. So there are some good and some bad restaurants to find in Old Town. Some people say that all of Old Town is just one big scam. I don't agree with that, but you will find a lot of things here aimed at gullible tourists. But there are more scams to watch out for in Stockholm. One is the picture scam, where someone wants you to take a picture of them. You take a quick picture, but when you return the camera, they accidentally drop it, and then they get pissed off and want you to pay for the damages. Personally, I think this is a really rare scam, and if it ever should happen to you, just walk away. There's nothing they can do. If anyone ever approaches you at an ATM, they're up to no good. They might be trying to scan your credit card details or see your PIN number. No one would walk up to someone standing at an ATM in Sweden, so just hide your card and walk away. A classic scam abroad is if you hook up with a girl or a guy at a bar, and after a while they suggest that you go to another place. You end up ordering a couple of drinks at the new bar, but when it's time to leave, the bill is suddenly astronomical. In other countries, this is often a scam, where the bar has extremely inflated prices, and they're all working together. In Stockholm, it's not as clear-cut. It could just be a normal bar, because alcohol costs a bloody fortune in general. Speaking of bars, be careful of your phone and your wallet if you're at a bar in the city center. I've traveled all over the world, and I've never been robbed or pickpocketed during my travels. The only time I've been pickpocketed was after a couple of beers at the Bishop Arms pub in Stockholm. These scams are common in all big cities and not exclusive to Stockholm. Just use a bit of common sense, be a bit careful, and don't leave your belongings unattended, and you'll be fine. Apparently they're filming something on the middle of the street, just as I'm filming. This is pretty meta, isn't it? This is so weird.
Yeah, nu står jag här med, what's your name?
Miro.
Miro, hello
Or
Miro.
actually a 3-star Vagabond.
Oh yeah, and do you watch Idol?
I do.
You
I
do. This is Julian, you really love Julian. Yes,
of course,
you do.
of course.
What do you want to ask Julian right before he go out on stage this Friday?
I would love to ask, what's the biggest scam he's encountered in Stockholm?
The biggest scam?
Exactly.
Great question from Julian's #1 Hollands fan. Thank you very much. Okay.
Now let's talk about a sensitive topic. Sweden is pretty divided on this one, so I'm gonna try to straddle the fence and present both sides. In the last couple of decades, there have been more and more beggars on the streets of Stockholm. Some people say that all beggars are scammers. They say that it's all organized and that in reality they make a lot of money from begging. On the other hand, some people say that no one in their right mind would beg if they had any other alternative, and that we need to take care of these less fortunate people. I think there's a little bit of merit to both sides. There are signs that the begging is organized, and that indicates that people have put it into a system. But these are still people who have a lot less than most Swedes and tourists, and if we can help others, shouldn't we? If you decide to call these people scammers, that's up to you. And if you decide to give them some money, that's also up to you. Either way, be prepared that there's an unexpectedly large number of people begging on the streets. If you search online for scams in Stockholm, you'll find many more things that people are complaining about. The problem is that most of those things aren't scams. Stockholm is just an expensive place to visit. Some people call the Arlanda Express train to and from the airport a scam, but at 300 crowns that's still cheaper than a taxi and much faster. I've seen people call the Vasa Museum a scam because you pay a fair bit of money and all you get is an awesome historical look into a massive Swedish blunder. That's not really my definition of a scam. Likewise, Gröna Lund, a lovely boardwalk amusement park, has also been called a scam. It's not a scam. It's a bit expensive, yes, but it's still a good place to visit. Boat tours around Stockholm are also expensive, but you get a beautiful ride and interesting information. The word scam is actually completely overused. And the same goes for the word amazing for that matter. People use that word way too often when describing things during travels, myself included. Anyway, let's move on to something that actually is a serious scam. If you like Stockholm, which you should, then you might start to think about moving here. In that case, you need to be careful when looking for a place to stay. Getting an apartment in Stockholm is a cutthroat business. Real estate is expensive, and people are fighting tooth and nail to live in the city center. It's common to rent out apartments or rooms second-hand or even third-hand. Unfortunately, some people commit serious fraud along with that. The mildest form of fraud is to simply overcharge for the rent. If you're paying an exorbitant amount of rent, you could actually complain to Hyresnämnden, the Swedish rental board. They could rule that you've been paying too much and that you should be compensated retroactively. A worse kind of fraud is people who ask for deposits for apartments that don't even exist. If that happens, you're not just losing your money, you might also be stranded in a new city with all your stuff and no place to stay. The best way to protect against that is to use reputable services. If you see a shady ad for an apartment, it probably is shady. Of course, many of these scammers do their best not to seem shady, so ask for references and always ask to see the apartment beforehand. But don't let that discourage you in case you decide to move here. Stockholm is a lovely place to visit, and it's even nicer to live here. Just use common sense and be a little bit careful and you'll be fine. And there you have it. That was a short list of things to look out for when visiting Stockholm. Sweden is a safe country overall, but no place is completely safe from scammers. I hope you found this useful, or at least a little bit interesting. Like and subscribe, but most importantly, have a great day.